Hello, and welcome to this year's Fall Smash 2020. I'm Zach Bleicher, founder and executive director of Edgar Miller Legacy, and we're so thrilled to have you here with us tonight. Our organization, like so many others this past several months, has undergone some major changes, but we're thrilled to share with you some new and exciting projects that we've been working on, and we'll plan to share with you over the coming months and year. I'm joined tonight by our co-chairs of the Fall Smash Event Committee, board member Jamie Lundblad, Gary Metzner, and Lisa Lee. Together, they've been working tirelessly to bring this wonderful program to us this evening.
Hi, we're thrilled you decided to join us today in support of our mission to preserve and promote the art, life, and legacy of Edgar Miller, whose astounding body of work continues to inspire us today.
For those of you who are just beginning to learn about his story, Edgar Miller was a master crafter, designer, and artist who produced prolifically throughout the 20th century, predominantly here in Chicago. And he left behind some of the most astounding built environments that exist in the city.
More than that, Miller's capacious efforts created a community of enthusiasts, creative professionals, fellow artists, and learners of all ages who have come to know and appreciate his work as a catalyst for their own inventiveness, experimentation, artistic expression, and activism.
During tonight's all-virtual Fall Smash, we'll be sharing some highlights of our recent accomplishments and a little bit about what you can expect from Edgar Miller Legacy in the coming months.
Our program will include a conversation on the history of art and activism in Edgar Miller's handmade homes in Chicago with board member Clinée Hedspeth, highlights from recent Artist Residency showcases, and an introduction to the all-new virtual tour of the Glasner Studio. Really exciting. It also will include an award ceremony for our Champion and Creative Spirit awardees. Throughout the evening, you'll also be hearing from residents of Edgar Miller's design spaces. I've been in a few, and how they have come to be inspired by being surrounded by his incredible art.
We hope that, like Edgar Miller's work, you feel inspired to engage with our work, vision, and mission, and donate as part of our Fall Smash campaign. This event is as much about welcoming and celebrating you as a member of our community as it is about recognizing the impact that Miller's work has had on all of us participating today. Please note the link to our Fall Smash campaign page in the description below, edgarmiller.org/donate. We'll be updating donations live as they come in. Keep an eye on the chat window to the right of your screen as well, and feel free to join the chat with your thoughts throughout the evening. We're excited to hear from you and to have you share what you think makes Edgar Miller's work and story special.
We are so excited to get started. Join us now for a conversation that I had here in the Glasner Studio just a few weeks ago with our board member Clinée Hedspeth on Edgar Miller's impact on art and activism in Chicago. We hope you enjoy. Hi, I'm Zach Bleicher, founder and executive director of Edgar Miller Legacy.
Hi, I'm Clinée Hedspeth, proud member of Edgar Miller Legacy Board, and I'm a museum professional and fine arts appraiser.
And today we're going to be talking about Edgar Miller's handmade homes and the history of art and activism. So I'd like to start our conversation about art and activism today, talking about the universality of art, how it's created, how creativity walks a line of incorporating diverse viewpoints while honoring where those influences came from. In particular, the art that surrounds us here in the Glasner Studio and how it exemplifies this desire on the part of Edgar Miller, the artist, to have a universal perspective, which you can see as he's picking up motifs and designs from South America, Africa, East Asia, really indigenous arts from all around the world. And throughout, you see he's striving to use these styles more than just as an aesthetic, but truly to find that universal human spark of creativity. So I guess just to ask a question, does this give us some kind of guidance for how to be creative in our own lives?
I think when it comes to artists and, when we think of people like Picasso and their use of other cultures, maybe imagery and artistic forms, it gets kind of a fetish. There's a fetish to it oftentimes that I don't see with Miller's work, though. I see a true appreciation and incorporation of what he has observed and admired. And I hope more artists would do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think artists should be more forthcoming with it too. I think what Edgar left was using his words to talk about where he got this material from. I think some artists, where it becomes cultural appropriation, is they just pretend like they didn't utilize it from anywhere else, that it didn't come from anywhere else, right? And for him to recognize that he's noticing that universal experience of creating beauty and critiquing the world around us, and then making it part of his work that he does, that's very different. And, it's something that I think if artists want to move beyond their lived experience and incorporate other cultures, that they should be very, very, intentional with it.
Well, in terms of lived experiences and translating that into art, communicating that through creativity, when you think about how you've seen creatives produce their work as it reflects their own lives, what role does space play in that kind of work? I'm thinking, of course, in particular about the handmade homes and the Glasner Studio.
I'm always looking at the intersection between lived experiences and the spaces that we occupy. And, just knowing that this space was built by a man who had an appreciation for others and felt it necessary to build a space that brought the outside in, brought the beauty of nature, of different materials in to live with it, is very important. I think showing that that our private space can reflect how we feel about the world and where we occupy it. And that's what you get when you come into the studio. I mean, think about it, that a bowl that I'm going to use can be beautiful, that it can provide me with multiple ways of interacting with it. I can hold it for food to nourish myself, or I can just look at it. Or that a fireplace that's going to keep me warm can actually inspire me and remind me that the world is bigger than me. That really is high art, because you're seeing the multiple ways that you can interact with this piece. That's genius.
Well, art has a purpose beyond just art for art's sake or beautification, right? There's a language to it. There are various ways of interacting with it. I wonder, can there also be an activism to it? Or how do activism and art intertwine? How can artistic spaces help achieve justice and change?
Right. Yeah, generally speaking, I think social activism and art are very, very linked. They're wedded together in the sense that both demand imagination, both demand an observation, active observation of the world we live in, and to imagine something different. Activism, there isn't a blueprint on what that looks like. Social justice it's not that abstract, right? I see police brutality. I'm able to imagine a world without police brutality. I have a canvas. I'm able to imagine something else on this blank canvas. But in our everyday lives, we have opportunities to ask for a more just world. Activism doesn't mean you have to go somewhere. It's starting where you are. And so, from what I've read from Edgar Miller, this is where he was, and this is where he chose to do his work.
Mm-hmm. And not just Edgar Miller. That brings to mind the other great presence in this house, Lucy Montgomery, who also brought together people here in her home where she was. And now we're here in 2020, still in the same vein of work. I think there's a power there. And I'm wondering what you think about the idea of a built environment in the middle of Chicago in the 1920s. Now it's nearly 100 years later. What is it about these places that is so fertile for art and activism?
Right. Well, this space definitely has power.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been seen as a safe space for the artist and then later on political activists if it wasn't. And so there's something built into this space that allows that, I think. I often tell people a lot of these artists started here in Chicago. They learned their craft, they learned their trade at different art centers around here, hanging out with other artists, hanging out in spaces like this. And then later on went to the New Yorks and maybe, the Detroits at the time. And Chicago's, I'm not shocked that Edgar Miller came to this city and was able to do what he did. I'm just not shocked about that. Or that Lucy Montgomery could purchase the place and do what she did here, because there's this energy that's here. There is this activism because many of those issues are so deeply rooted. I've always been impressed as an outsider of how the artists do feel like they have an obligation to, or a voice in other social areas. It's putting seeds of possibility in people's heads. What would it mean to actually have someone from the far west side or far south side come into this space? It can be life-changing, life-altering. We have the advantage is that we're just literally picking up and evolving off of the work that was already done. I hope as a board member that I encourage us and do the work necessary for us to pick up some of the things that Edgar Miller already laid down, that Lucy Montgomery already presented before us, and build off of those. So the fact that we have this as we can look at ways to continue the Artist in Residency, that's building off of what Miller created, an artist colony, a place where creatives can come and create in a space that encourages that speaks to that. And I also would like for us to continue the work where it's inviting those who might not think of us as a safe space to come here and use this as their space. Mm-hmm. I think as more and more or younger creatives are aware that there's so much in the city that can influence them, I think we're going to still have even more bodies of work produced by creatives that are going to be just awesome. And so the legacy is continuing.
Yeah.
What a captivating conversation, which could not be held at a more appropriate time. Our nation faces unprecedented challenges that call for action and change, and the role of art and inspiration could not be more crucial in helping us navigate these difficult times. As Clinée shared, activism begins in the spaces where we find ourselves in right now.
Our community includes wonderful individuals and families who live and work in Edgar Miller designed spaces today, and have their own insights into how Miller's work inspires them. Let's meet some of them now.
I think Edgar just made these things. I think he was just creating. So I think when an artist is creating, they're just doing. And so him creating these and his other artisans, I don't think they realized the magnitude that they were having and actually how they would feel.
It's almost like learning about Edgar Miller kind of takes you on a journey into these spaces, and it's kind of like an aperture into this other world, right? And so when people get curious about that other world, they get curious about who created that other world, and they see a sign saying that this was designed by Edgar Miller, and it's the most unique experience you could ever imagine.
And they're all, unique. And the ones I looked at were all different. I used to walk by them all the time and just kind of wonder, and then this place I used to pass it and wonder what was going on back behind here. And I sit here sometimes still. I've been here 2 years now. Can't believe it's been 2 years. And I look around and I see different things all the time. And just the way the light comes through the windows. And so when I found this place, I just thought, I can't turn this down. So here I am.
Well, there's a lot that connects the Edgar Miller story, right, and the space specifically. It connects not only the design, but really, the history of activists and activism and racial equality, and the fight for these things has long been established as part of that story. So being able to connect with actual human beings that have been in these spaces throughout time, so it's not just the current residents, you're always reconnecting with past residents as well, and the things that they created, the stories they told, the things that they fought for are also part of the building. So it feels like they're also your neighbors in a strange way, that you are part of a legacy of people that have been in these spaces.
Kind of preserving Edgar Miller's legacy. I mean, that's what it's about. And it's nice to know that there's a group that's doing that, or that you all are doing that. And you've brought in, it's just unique. I mean, you don't see anything like it anywhere.
So proud of the work that the founding board has been able to accomplish thus far in just gaining recognition of the fact that Edgar Miller's work and life and legacy really matters to Chicago. We've been so successful in getting some of the really important non-for-profit granting institutions to fund our work. And it has to date been pretty Chicago focused, but I'm really looking forward to expanding Edgar Miller Legacy's footprint and of Edgar Miller in Chicago. Being able to take advantage of the fact that artists, once they come into this space, their sense of creativity is completely altered and renewed. And seeing what they have been able to create as a result of really spending time in the space has been nothing short of amazing.
Every single day, that constant thought, curiosity, discovery is really important for an artist. So that really shone through.
That artist colony concept, the power for it to live, the longevity and of how long it stayed around and still continues is a testament to their artistry. Because that's what real art does.
Edgar Miller Legacy aims to bring its message of the power of space, built environments, and unbridled creativity to a wider audience, and to safeguard it for future generations to come. Now, we'd like to share with you some highlights of our past Artist in Residence program. While access to Edgar Miller space has not been possible over the past few months due to COVID-19, we're looking forward to continuing our residency program through careful, limited access to historic Edgar Miller designed spaces in the coming year. Part of your contribution tonight directly supports emerging artists to produce art, music, and performance inspired by Edgar Miller.
Our goal as artists is to put love at the center of everything that we do. Loving the materials, loving your subject, loving the history, and then loving your audience. There's power in taking time to do things with love. I'm Elliot Bergman. I'm a musician and artist from Chicago, and I just finished my residency here at the Glasner Studios.
My name is Luna Day, singer, songwriter, producer, and performer. I will be there for you. I will be there for you. Being here helped me a lot because I've definitely been inspired by just being in the artistic environment. And I think that Edgar really had a vision and stuck to it and utilized all his resources. Kind of paved the way for a lot of artists. I really identify with him in that way of being a rule breaker.
My mother would, when she would dry me off after my bath when I was, a young child, she would allow me this time by myself in the bathtub. And I would create all these worlds within the bath water. And then she would come in and rock me and sing these most gorgeous improvised folk melodies. Edgar Miller's a part of this performance, We don't know each other, but somehow our lines have crossed. And since we're basically working together, so that's when all that manipulation happens and all that movement.
The thing that's so special about this place is that Edgar's inventiveness and artistry is in every little square inch of the place. It's sort of this improvisatory architecture where you have these little moments of delight and surprise and finding these ways to make little moments of beauty. And it's funny just how having a space that's kind of a powerful gift.
Being here, it just put me in a place where I really where I had to be more self-sufficient, basically. So I think that it was helpful to be in a place where I had no distractions, where I could just try out ideas and know which direction I wanted to go. And I resisted days, thinking familiar ways for my escape, ridicule and hate. And this is a story I shouldn't have told, no, don't honor me for being honest so bold. I'm just telling you what you should know. Listen closely, watch it unfold. This is a story I shouldn't have told. Don't honor me for being honest so cold. I'm just telling you what you should know. Listen closely, and damn if I do, I'll be hurting you. All I want is you, battling scars to prove that hell if I do not follow through with what I ask for, I'll be biting the hand that keeps me yearning for more. This is a story I shouldn't have told, no, don't honor me for being honest so bold. I'm just telling you what you should know. Listen closely, watch it unfold. This is a story I shouldn't have told, no, don't honor me for being honest so bold. I'm just telling you what you should know. Listen closely. Oh, this is a story I shouldn't have told. Don't honor me for being honest so bold. I'm just telling you what you should know. Listen closely. Yeah. This is a story I shouldn't have told. Don't honor me for being honest so bold. I'm just telling you what you should know. Listen closely. Watch it unfold.
That's what I'm trying to get to, like some dark, beautiful thing that I don't know about. Man, if I'm alive, I'm making music.
The spirit of Edgar is very palpable in this house, and it's just sort of encouraging to be kind of in the house of a guy who loved making things so much. There's a lot to be learned from how he put things together, I think. It can kind of rub off on you a little bit.
Edgar Miller spaces have been sites for inspiration and learning. And while COVID-19 has prevented us from gathering together to celebrate, experience, and learn within these spaces, and while we may not be able to visit them, Edgar Miller's Legacy has been working very hard to allow for these amazing sites to come to you. We are very proud to announce our first virtual tour of Edgar Miller's Glasner Studio. This tour will be a dynamic tool for everyone, from art and cultural history students to architectural designers and casual visitors, to view the Glasner Studio in never-before-seen detail. This tour will also include multimedia highlights curated by professional educators, including Lisa Stone, formerly of the Roger Brown Study Collection, and modern sculpture expert Marin Sullivan, to share rarely heard stories of Miller's individual pieces of art. Much of Edgar Miller's embedded and collected art that is at home inside the studio's 4 stories will be explorable. We're pleased to share with you an introduction to this tour, which will be accessible to the public later this fall.
Hello and welcome to the virtual tour of the Glasner Studio. I'm Jeff Cruz, Director of Operations for Edgar Miller Legacy. The Glasner Studio is part of a larger artist colony studio complex here on the near north side of Chicago. Designed and executed by renowned artist Edgar Miller starting in 1928. Initially completed in 1932, the Glasner Studio was designed as a pied-à-terre for a local industrialist and art patron, Rudolf Glasner, at the back of the courtyard building. Now known as one of Edgar Miller's handmade homes, the Glasner Studio stands as the greatest example of Edgar Miller's mastery over a variety of media, employed to create an inspirational and artistic built environment. As you tour the house, take a look around in all directions. Nearly every art object in the house was executed by Edgar Miller. You'll find multimedia hotspots scattered throughout each room, highlighting Miller's embedded and handcrafted art with in-depth information on each piece. Be sure to look upwards in some rooms to explore all of Edgar Miller's embedded art and experience the full scope of the multi-level, richly detailed space. On the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see a list of rooms to select from to explore in full 360-degree panorama. To return back to the main website, click on the logo in the top left of your screen. Come back often as we continue to add to the tour and showcase more of Miller's fantastic work. And we're live. Jeff here again with the brand new virtual tour of Edgar Miller's Glasner Studio. We're excited to share with you just a quick preview of this great learning tool and educational experience. As Gary shared with us earlier, this tour has been curated and designed with the help of some fantastic arts educators and experts, including Lisa Stone and Marin Sullivan. So let's dive in. As you can see, we were able to capture full panoramic views and images of the whole Glasner Studio interior spaces. Visitors will be able to use their desktops, laptops, tablets, and even phones to see the rooms of the Glasner Studio in 360 degrees. So much of a visitor's experience in the space in person is to view the volume and scale of it. But now with technology, we are able to share that opportunity with you right here on your device at home. We're also able to move within the space to key vantage points to explore some of Edgar Miller's art in detail. Right now, we're able to highlight some of Miller's most famous pieces, including the Garden of Paradise windows, and also the Love Through the Ages murals, and even more rarely explored corners of the house like the old kitchenette. All of these will be explorable. Now, should you wish to move to a particular room, navigation is made super easy for visitors with a menu of floors and rooms that can be toggled at left. You'll notice that small icons next to room names help to orient you as to which floor and part of the house you're on: top floor, middle floors, mezzanine, landing, and garden levels. And looking around any of the rooms, besides the stunning high-quality panoramic images, the thing that you'll notice are the unobtrusive hotspots throughout the spaces. Hovering over a static hotspot will let you know the particular piece of art or item that we can learn more about. Let's take a look at what one of these looks like. The Reading Nook bay windows is one of my personal favorite places in the studio, so why not start there? You'll see that each hotspot pop-up shares information about the particular item, photographic images, and either an audio or video guide. Let's play the video. The stained glass bay windows towards the south end of the room were all completed in 1929, part of the first stage of stained glass installations to be completed in the Garden of Paradise room. The window set here has suffered the most deterioration over the decades, with several individual panes having been rehabbed incompletely without Miller's original painting. In this bay window nook, Miller continues his naturalistic themes from the main window on the south wall, with the majority of the frames depicting animals in all types of groupings without any specific pattern or theme. Whereas the main windows exalt the human family at the center of the piece, the bay window's human figures seem to portray archetypes, myths, and fairy tales. Amongst the various forest animals that look on at a visiting admirer, a woman is depicted in repose, another washing her hair by a forest stream, while a male form wrestles with a lion. These images harken back to more traditional images of roles of the sexes played in Greco-Roman art. These hotspots help to not only inform about the art, but the story of Edgar Miller, sharing rarely heard anecdotes from Miller's family, friends, collaborators, and even the artist himself, helping us gain a better understanding not just of how he produced these amazing collected pieces, but why he pursued developing across all sorts of media throughout his prolific career. And you won't just be hearing from me. As we mentioned, professional curators and art historians like Marin Sullivan will lend her sculpture expertise to share facts learned throughout their research.
One of Miller's masterpieces in wood, this bench was executed for the Normandy House restaurant at 800 Tower Court, right across the street from the Chicago Water Tower. Miller and his second family lived in an apartment upstairs from the restaurant for many years. He turned the restaurant into an artistic, medieval European Shangri-La, executing everything from stained glass windows to murals to the menus, placemats, and business cards, even the servers' uniforms. This bench was part of a pair that were made for the main table, which was centrally placed and where VIPs would feast and be merry.
Straight from the archives, we will finally be able to share with learners views of Miller's art in never-before-seen detail. And as you explore the art, you'll be presented with opportunities to dive even deeper, exploring our published essays and lectures at opportune moments whenever your curiosity is piqued. The last stop here in our tour preview is at our little Edgar icon that you may have noticed. Every room will offer an introductory overview of the entire room at this icon. Let's take a listen to the introduction to the Garden of Paradise room here by Lisa Stone.
Nothing prepares you for your first experience of the magnificent space of the Glasner Studio's Garden of Paradise room, also known as the Cathedral Room. Chevron-patterned wood floors ground the room, as elsewhere in the Glasner Studio. Edgar Miller modified 19th century brick buildings beyond any recognition of their former selves, perhaps nowhere more dramatically than here. Elements of the room evoke centuries-old art and architecture, balanced by the light, bright ambience and modern recessed lighting. Stark white walls are offset by dark wood beams that support the high-pitched ceilings, emphasizing the cathedral-like feeling of a secular space. Delicately carved and polychromed rafters support the tall pitched ceiling, creating a commanding, uplifting space. The bank of 8 Garden of Paradise windows filter daylight through Miller's magnificent compositions. A peaceable kingdom of wild creatures and humans are intertwined with floral and patterned motifs. The windows are eye-dazzling, soul-tingling, and are clearly Miller's masterwork. Painted in jewel-like colors, creatures in motion and creatures at ease interplay in a rhythmic tapestry of dense designs that captivate your eyes and mind. Anchoring the center of this space, the table and chairs provide for the fundamental unifying experience of dining together, of sharing meals. A small galley kitchen provides a place for staging refreshments. The Garden of Paradise room is also used as a gathering place for meetings, where brainstorming comes naturally in this incredibly inspiring space.
Thank you for joining us for this brief preview of our virtual tour of the Glasner Studio. As you can see, there's so much more to look at and take in. This tour was designed to emulate the same drive for exploration, education, and inspiration that we aim to share with you in our in-person Edgar Miller site tours. Until we can continue to learn together again in person, we hope that you'll come back later this fall when we open up our virtual tour of the Glasner Studio to the public and explore deeper into the amazing work and story of Edgar Miller. And thank you all for joining us for this year's Fall Smash. Please know that your contributions today and in the future go directly to supporting our work at Edgar Miller Legacy, to produce research on lectures, experiences, and virtual tools just like this tour, for future generations to come.
We hope you're enjoying tonight's Fall Smash. Although we're not able to be together in person, we're excited so many of you have joined us virtually. Edgar Miller Legacy's work would not be possible without our community of supporters and fellow Edgar Miller appreciators. Together, it's our pleasure to present our second annual awards ceremony, also known as the Edgars. Our Edgar Miller Champion Award recognizes an organization or individual who has championed and supported the work of Edgar Miller Legacy, driving forward our mission. And our first ever Creative Spirit Award recognizes an individual who embodies Miller's philosophy of lifelong learning, his work ethic, and his versatility as an artist. We're now joined by my friend, Eva Silverman, of the Terra Foundation for American Art. The Terra Foundation was our inaugural Champion Award recipient last year. Eva, thank you for helping me present this year's awards and introduce our recipients for 2020.
Thanks, Jamie. It's my pleasure. On behalf of the Terra Foundation for American Art, I'm happy to introduce this year's Champion Awardee. This year, we were honored to help nominate and select the Champion Award recipient, the wonderful, extraordinary Lisa Stone. Lisa is former curator of the Roger Brown Study Collection and a founding board member of Edgar Miller Legacy. Her dedication to the vision of the Legacy as an organization in its early days was central to helping it surmount its initial hurdles and grow through its beginning stages.
Lisa Stone's mentorship has helped Edgar Miller Legacy's staff and board shape the organization from its founding up to the present day, and her intellectual focus on Miller and his work have guided us in exploring the depths of his amazing story. Lisa Stone's support has inspired us to champion Miller as an overlooked artistic genius of the American Midwest. Now joining us from the kitchen at Glasner Studio, Lisa Stone, I'm thrilled to present you with the Edgar Miller Legacy Champion Award. Congratulations.
Thanks, Jamie and Eva, for such a lovely introduction. Good evening, and thank you all so much for joining the Fall Smash and for supporting Edgar Miller Legacy. I'm honored to receive the Champion Award, and I congratulate Lakshmi Ramgopal for being a most deserving recipient of the Creative Spirit Award. We'll hear from Lakshmi in a moment. I champion the work of Edgar Miller Legacy for many reasons. It's no secret that I'm hugely interested in artists as placemakers, creative people who dissolve distinctions between home, studio, art, and life. Edgar Miller was a master placemaker whose radical approach to transforming 19th century buildings into exceptionally original environments can be considered in an august national context, alongside Henry Mercer's Fonthill in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, Carl Junker's Junker House in Lemgo, Germany, and Mary Knoll's home studio and sculpture garden in Fox Point, Wisconsin, just to name a few. The intimate context of home and the possibilities of homes performing as museums has never felt quite so relevant. Edgar Miller worked fluidly in many traditional mediums, thinking with his hands, making, carving, shaping, painting, with one foot in a medieval realm and the other foot in the 20th century. He spun magic. His work is inspiring for people of all ages and presents an especially vital example for younger people, demonstrating how a life can be lived creatively to the fullest. In 2014, Zach Bleicher invited me to be part of Edgar Miller Legacy's founding board. In the first 3 years, with a handful of very hardworking board members, we created Edgar Miller Legacy's framework, its mission, vision, bylaws, and direction, all guided by our shared excitement for how this legacy project would grow, educate, and perform. We forged strong relationships with Chicago's preservation community, with the At Home in Chicago Consortium, as well as foundations and other supporters in Chicago and further afield. Since I cycled off the board in 2019, I've been thrilled to watch as Edgar Miller Legacy's staff and volunteers continue to develop new ways to provide experiences and interpretations of Edgar Miller's fabulous spaces. I've been excited in the past few months to contribute to the beautiful tour, virtual tour, of the Glasner Studio that we just previewed. I hope you enjoy touring the studio remotely once it's fully published later this year. The Glasner Studio, Miller's masterpiece of art, design, and space, doesn't begin to exhaust its own possibilities, visually, spatially, historically, and in terms of its interpretation. The studio has been an inspiring space and also a sanctuary. During the years that civil rights activist Lucy Montgomery lived here, she used the studio as a haven for people in the Black activist community, as well as international activists dedicated to human rights causes worldwide. Critical conversations occurred here. Black lives mattered here. BIPOC lives matter here. As the visionary Lauren Bond of the Metabolic Studio in Los Angeles proclaims, artists need to create on the same scale that society has the capacity to destroy. Edgar Miller created on an extraordinary scale. His work has the capacity to excite and inspire us over, around, and through volatile times. I'm humbled to receive this honor, and I'm doing so virtually from the workhorse of the Glasner Studio, and in many ways, its beating heart, the kitchen. Each of the studio's owner custodians, from Rudolph Glasner to Lucy Montgomery to Mark Mamelin and others, have let this place perform as intended, as the perfect place to celebrate art, community, and life. Refreshments have been free-flowing from this kitchen for many decades. I raise a toast to everyone and give sincerest thanks for your support and this special honor. Cheers and have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We are so grateful for your continued inspiration and support. It is now my pleasure to introduce our first Edgar Miller Creative Spirit Award recipient, Lakshmi Ramgopal. Lakshmi is a multidisciplinary artist and performer who attended her artist residency with Edgar Miller Legacy in the summer of 2019. Over the past several years, Lakshmi has created and performed as Lacanthia, exploring musically electro-ambient pop idioms, often staged in non-traditional spaces.
In the spirit of partnership and with the mindset that collaboration is critical to the creation of great art and community, Lakshmi worked with an ensemble to create a long-form piece called Samvisra. I had the pleasure of seeing the performance live at Glasner Studio and really loved it. It was a beautiful combination of color and light and sound and movement and cultures and traditions all blended to create a wonderful energy that was really transporting. Edgar Miller Legacy will debut Lakshmi's Artist Residency Showcase online later this year.
Right now, I'm honored to welcome Lakshmi Ramgopal, who is joining us also from the Glasner Studio in receiving this year's Creative Spirit Award.
Thank you so much, everyone, for awarding me the Creative Spirit Award. I want to express my gratitude to everyone at Edgar Miller Legacy for seeing me as worthy of this award, and also for the amazing opportunity to perform here with my ensemble, without whom Lycanthia just would not be possible. I want to say thank you to Asha Rowland, Erica Miller, and Joanna Brock for making my ideas something worth experiencing and for teaching me so much about who I want to be as an artist. It was just one of the most incredible experiences that all of us have had as artists, both on our own and as a group who perform together on a regular basis. For me, the Creative Spirit Award really symbolizes the kind of experimental nature of art in its most exciting form, and that's something that my project Lycanthia strives to explore as much as possible. Creative spirit is one that makes things out of whatever is available. I think it's lovely to have a big budget and all of those kinds of resources, but at the end of the day, it isn't completely necessary to make really wonderful, beautiful, compelling, interesting, disruptive art. A creative spirit is someone who kind of digs deep within themselves to see the richness that's there and is able to build something beautiful or interesting out of it. One of the really exciting things about this residency was the opportunity to be in a space that is unlike any other space that I have ever been in, and this was a real exciting opportunity to think about the memories that homes house, and to think about how that memory can be channeled in terms of the way our movements and the way the sounds that we make can kind of intertwine not only with the architecture of the space, but also the light, which I have always found incredibly inspiring here. In my family, homes and houses have always been an incredibly important place for thinking about memory and for the things that happen in families that are important or which are significant but which no one wants to talk about. Homes are full of truths and they're also full of secrets. And something I love about the Glasner Studio is how it really kind of illuminates all of those possibilities all at once. And in some ways, very literally, because there are so many details in the house that you just don't necessarily notice unless the light is just right, not only at a particular time of day, but I think even a particular time of year. My family on both sides has many women in it who have worked really hard to become incredible vocalists, first and foremost. And it's to them that I owe my own training in South Indian classical music, and ultimately also in Bharatanatyam, which is a form of South Indian dance. And so one of the goals of the performance, both for me and the ensemble, was to find a way to intertwine the experience of being in the house with the very specific personal experiences that the music and choreographed movement pieces of Samvisara try to share and explore and complicate. And one of the ways we did that was actually by moving through all of the levels of the house. So we began on the ground floor and positioned ourselves at various points along the staircase so that the audience kind of witnessed the musicians as if we were birds in a tree. And over the course of the performance, we, the ensemble, along with the audience, would move upwards and upstairs into the topmost floor where I'm sitting right now. And in that way, everybody experienced this kind of transformative journey, not only through sound and movement in terms of the choreographed pieces, but also in terms of in a very kind of holistic physical way themselves. The audience themselves were moving and not just watching us. And so the opportunity to bring that to Edgar Miller and to the Glasner Studio, and to kind of collaborate both with my ensemble and this house, which is itself so vibrant and so living and so full of memories and sort of important moments in local and a more global history, was just a miraculous kind of opportunity, and one that I don't think we can ever top again. So I want to say again, thank you so much to all of you for this award and for this opportunity to help me grow as an artist and to help Chicago's art scene grow in new and exciting ways.
We are so grateful to both of our award recipients for their continued support of Edgar Miller Legacy. This evening has been a celebration of community. We've come together despite distance and circumstance. This past year has thrown many unforeseen challenges in our paths, and we are still able to come together, become inspired, and envision a better tomorrow. In many ways, I'm reminded of Edgar Miller's spirit and philosophy. If a piece of glass he wished to use broke, he never simply threw it away. He picked up those pieces and found space for them to become art for everyone to see and appreciate. It's this ethos that we celebrate together this evening and as a community. We hope that you will support us in continuing to share this message by donating to the Edgar Miller Legacy at the link below, or consider to join or renew your membership to the organization, which can be done at edgarmiller.org/members.
We thank you for joining us for a glimpse of our vision of what we are working on in the months to come. Stay tuned for more. If you are not yet subscribed to our newsletter, visit edgarmiller.org/subscribe to stay in touch with us as we continue to bring you more wonderful content through the rest of 2020. We will be sharing with you dates for future live artist residency showcases, live virtual Edgar Miller art and design workshops, and our upcoming essay and lecture series on Edgar Miller's Carl Street Studios to be published later this year.
Before we leave for the evening, we'd like to thank our host committee and our supporters who made gifts at every level. This year's host committee includes Julie Mamelin Bleicher, Zach Bleicher, Sangini Brambhat, Elizabeth Glassman, Clinée Hedspeth, Greg Howe, Paul Janicki, Jeff Cruz, Susan Pearson, Tony Santiago, Eva Silverman, and Ian Tobin. Thank you.
And our sincerest gratitude and thanks go out to all our sponsors of this year's annual benefit. To those of you who have donated anonymously, thank you for your generous gifts. Our sponsors this year also include Kim and Simon Perutz, Thomas E. Donnelly, Barbara Nitchie Fuldner, Clinée Hedspeth, Paul Janicki and Ann Trompeter, Lisa Yan Lee and Adam Bush, Gary Metzner and Scott Johnson, Jamie Lundblad and Bill Melamed, Gerald Edelman, Julie Mamelin Bleicher, Dennis and Cherise Grannon, Susan and Arthur Pearson, Tom Shapiro, Noah Bleicher and Marcella Swenson in memory of Mark Mamelin, Charlie Robinson Branda, Lisa Coburn, Elizabeth Glasman, Gail Griswold in honor of Julie Bleicher, Maria Herchelek, Lori Kaufman, Stephen and Sarah Lovey, Joseph Lowndy, Jeff and Christy Lundblad, Mary Lou and Jack Miller, Dan Nisbet and Terrence Chappelle, Janet Carl Smith and Mel Smith, Lauren Silvers, Lisa Stone in memory of Mark Mamelin, Joan Weiss, Denise Alvera, Todd Bowman, Natalie Bookie Baker, Sangini Brambot, Kenneth C. Burkhart, Jordan Cerisa, Dan Dallas, Diana Dutton and Tony Grindle, Ellen Frank, Walter Friedman and Karen Harrison, Brian Gailey, Eileen Gill, Harbo Architects, Gregory Howe, Karen Jones, Margie Kay and Bill Padnos, Deborah Carr, David McDermott, Maureen Mizwicki, Sharon Navan, David Prindable, Eva Silverman, Eric and Lynn Smith, Tim Smith in memory of Bill Olafson, Anne-Marie St. Germain, Franklin Vagnone, and Johnny Yealy of Twisted Preservation, Jim Zanzi, and the Old Town Merchants and Residents Association. Thanks also to those who helped bring this program together, including Sharon Bladholm, Todd Bowman, Dan Dallas, Mark Hackman, Sean Lent, Lauren Silvers, and Marin Sullivan. I also want to thank everyone who has joined us this evening and contributed to this year's Fall Smash campaign. We would not be able to pursue our mission of sharing Edgar Miller's story with the world without you. Finally, I also want to thank our civic and corporate sponsors and supporters, which have helped us weather the storm of COVID-19 this year. Thank you to the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation and the MacArthur Foundation, the Terra Foundation for American Art, the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation, the City of Chicago, and Jenner and Block. Miller's spirit of unencumbered creativity and inspiration is essential in a world that can sometimes feel indifferent and averse to change. If you have not done so yet, please consider supporting us by donating at the link below and help us keep the legacy alive. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and see you all at an upcoming Edgar Miller Legacy program soon. Have a great evening, and thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.